We've started with our interview. Now you're talking through it. Imagine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Imagine.
Is mine up silent?
Please continue.
Anyway,
Welcome to STADIO Speaks, the podcast where we dive into the world of education, innovation, and all things STADIO. I'm your host, Kanyisa, and today we have a truly exciting episode for you. We are joined by the extraordinary guest, Landseer Collen, architect and director at BPas, who is the visionary behind the design of the new STADIO Durbanville Campus. We'll be discussing the inspiration and thought process behind the campus, its cutting-edge features, and how it will shape the future of learning for students at STADIO. Plus, we'll get to hear about Landseer's journey into architecture, the challenges and triumphs throughout his career, and some invaluable advice for aspiring architects and engineers. So, whether you're a prospective student or just fascinated by the world of architecture, this is an episode you won't want to miss. So, let's dive in. Landseer, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and joining us on our podcast. So we're going to dive right into it, and you can start by introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your titles.
I can start with the traditional part. I've got a family name that comes 100 years ago, but the easiest is I'm Landseer Collen. I'm an architect, but foremost, I don't see myself as an architect. I see my first as an entrepreneur that has an architectural practice.
Okay,
and that gives me the foreground for visionary thinking. My title in the business is Joe Soap.
Okay. Please do elaborate.
I don't see me as the hero of the business. I see myself as the guy that actually is with everyone. So I'm not actually the boss or the chief or the big canoe or what do you want to call me. But yeah, and in the paperwork I'm the director of the company. But in general, I'm actually the servant of my staff.
I love that. That's a good intro. Okay, and then tell us where your journey started in architecture.
It was one without understanding it. I think it's most. I think it's where most of architects start. But I think a lot of guys do have a background through uncle or a dad or a parent or had some exposure. Mine just purely was a selection of, we're studying at the Cape Technicon. There's 4 courses. Which one do you like? I looked at them and I said, too much learning there. Oh no, too much learning there. And I decided to do the one that makes more sense, and that was architecture.
Interesting.
But I think there was a narrative in it that my dad led me to it, in the sense of his interest in construction and his participation in projects. And my involvement, I believe it started with that rooting of it. And not so much I had an artistic feel and love for architecture, because it wasn't true. It only developed as I grew into my profession and learning more about the profession to understand it.
And tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? How many siblings you have? What sports did you play?
I grew up in Parow. I'm an arrow from Parow. I went to Tyburg High School. It's well renowned for Eben Etzebeth, came from there. There's a couple other Springbok players also came from that school. But I didn't play rugby, I played hockey. Played for provincial a couple of years, matriculated in the late 80s. We're a small family, 4 children. Everyone has their own story. And that's basically a summary of my family. I'm married, got 2 children, beautiful wife. I still think she's the queen of the world.
Love that.
My children are my superheroes. They are amazing. And then we've got 2 dogs, and I think, that's it. And a fish. I forgot the fishes.
Okay, cool. And then looking back at your career so far, what have been some of your proudest moments?
I think because it's been so long journey already. It's about 30 years. I think there's these increment stages where you have either small victories or large experiences. So I think if I basically take the last 10 years, I think the biggest experience was for me when I was in Barcelona in 2014, and out of ignorance, I saw a building and I thought, well, let me go and look at it. And it was Mies van Rooij's German pavilion that was reconstructed in Barcelona as part of its, let's say, heritage. And I couldn't grasp this building, and I was standing there for hours. I mean, they eventually asked me to leave the building because I was actually standing there and experiencing it. I think that was the emotional, almost intervention that happened, and that caused me to actually start diving into architecture, understanding architecture, learning about architecture. And I think that's where the SpongeBob came in, where I actually had to open the channels to learn, make myself open to be taught. I did my master's degree in architecture on the age of 47.
Nice.
Taking in consideration, I've been practicing for almost 22 years before I actually did a formal degree and become an architect. Then I think then I actually established an architectural practice, or for architect's practice. Previously it was a studio. I think that was the experience. But it also was an achievement because I reached something that I set a goal out to do. And I got through it. Work-wise, it was when we started getting recognized from our peers, being part of the architectural fraternity in the lodge in South Africa. But also when we start getting recognition in overseas for our small competitions that we enter. Last year we were shortlisted for the school that we did in Durbanville for the World Architectural Festival.
Lovely.
Did not understand the enormous scale of the competition till I got there, and I realized that I'm this little mouse walking between the elephants, or the giants, walking among the giants. And standing there, it was just realizing, but you've reached a point where you can see yourself part of this bigger circle. And that was a great experience. I won't say it's an achievement because we didn't win, but it was a lot of lessons learned how to do it better next time.
Yes.
Because it's all about marketing and presentation. But the experience was something that it's for the books. Met a lot of people in my life, great opportunities. I know a lot of people say always when they meet politicians, and it's great that they can meet those people, but for me it's meeting the architects that actually have an influence in society, have an influence on my work, created my environment I work in. So I feel that as a privilege to meet sometimes these great names when you travel overseas, participate in competitions and walk among them. And in South Africa we've got great architects with world reputation that's participating in our field.
Who do you think is the greatest person that you feel you've met so far?
Out of ignorance, I met Rem Koolhaas. He's a Dutch architect, very renowned, very tall person. I mean, I was standing next to him at Venice Biennale in Venice, and I asked him, I don't understand what they're doing here, and he took the time to explain to me what they're doing there, what it's all about. And then he said, but when he was finished, he said to me, well, join me in my masterclass. And I thought, okay, cool, we're going to cooking.
Little did you know.
It wasn't cooking, but it was a great experience to see a master architect in almost like they refer to them as star architects, but a person speaking for so much passion and understanding of architecture.
Do you think it's important for a student to have some sort of leadership when it comes to architecture, or even going the path of learning architecture?
Yeah, definitely. You need to have someone that mentors you. Look at we all start with a path. We've got parents that mentors us, grandparents that mentors us, society mentors us, teachers. But I think when you go into architecture, you need to align with someone that can actually guide you, to give you that opportunity to actually explore more. Because otherwise, I think you almost get stuck if you don't ask. It's very much about asking and learning and exploring more and diving into things, almost like mining the whole time, and taking that raw material. And a mentorship is very important. Even in your student years, you get guidance from mentors, and then when you finish with your studies, you actually go through a 2-year mentorship training program. So
is that standard?
Standard. It's regulated.
Lovely.
So I think if that is so important in the process,
Yes.
it should also be part of the beginning.
Yes.
And universities do that, and there is channels to do that. But I think even in school level, you can get kids that actually ask about architecture. And we see schools reaching out and ask. We've got children that's asking about architecture. So we've got a June-July program where scholars come to our practice for a couple of days.
Oh, nice.
Just have experience, and out of that, the parents will ask us, but can you spend a bit of time with you? We've got a couple of questions, and then we share.
Lovely. Love that. In your career, in every career, we know that there's challenges. So what are some of the significant obstacles that you've had to face in your own journey?
I think your biggest challenge is yourself. I think you have to acknowledge that you are not above anything else. You are part of it. You're part of a bigger cosmos. So your challenge will come with yourself to know where you are limited and to then breach that, to become informed, become better. I think good is not enough. Better is okay, but great is better.
But great is better. I love that.
So that, I think, is your first obstacle. I think when you overcome yourself and become part of the learning process, the experience process, the narrative of challenging becomes very important. Civil society, I think South Africa has got not unique problems or challenges or opportunities. I think it happens everywhere in the world. It's just how we deal with ours and how everyone deals with theirs. So it does have its challenges, and it's almost how you're going to deal with it. So if budgets are challenges, regulations are challenges, politics are challenges, economy is challenges. And it depends on how you deal with it. If you see that as almost like gates or walls that you can't get past, then you get stuck between two boundaries. And if boundaries become so limited in your environment, I think you're going to start seeing a very small world. We need to learn how to build ladders to climb over these boundaries, these challenges. So I think there are a lot, and I think it's getting more. The generation gaps are becoming a challenge.
Yes.
So to understand your client base, your user base, very important. It's becoming a science almost to understand the user base, because there's a differentiation between elder people and younger people and spatial usage and all that. And if you stop learning, you're not gonna understand it.
What do you think some of the challenges are nowadays when it comes to space usage and like the generational backgrounds and what it is that they want, and before what it is that you guys valued and what the youth now wants?
Transparency. I think it's a thing that we don't see a lot. We assume people like certain things instead of actually go and ask. So I think in a public space we need to investigate and not just Google. And now with AI, I think we're taking shorter cuts to actually research behavior patterns. Google might be a good resource, but we need to physically go and research. We need to ask users, do you like the space? How do you want to engage with the space? How will you experience the space? What will your sensory experience be in the space? And a lot of people say they by assumption. They say, but people like a lot of light. But we don't understand how people's eyes differ in color and how light sensitivity affects us. It's research we have to do. So in that I see a form of transparency that needs to be involved, that we almost take in consideration that we're not designing for someone that's from my perspective, my narrative or my reference, but actually a larger group. We can't do a study on 500 people and assume it represents 60 million people.
That's true.
And that type of standard became our standard. We need to do greater to be better. And through that we need to almost enforce research as part of our process, and which is part of your studies. You have to, the research is a critical factor. That's just one factor, I think, resistance we get outside.
Interesting. Okay, now that we've spoken research and figuring out what it is that people want in a certain space, what is it, or what was the brief that you got into building the Durbanville campus, and what type of space is that going to be?
I think if you're going to ask a client today, he will say to you, nothing that we told him he did. We started with a brief. I think we stayed within the brief, but we offered alternative thinking also. And we're still challenging the status quo through research, through referencing, case studies, precedent studies. So the brief is very similar to where we started, but the outcome I think is more modern. It's more I won't say ecliptic, but it's refreshing, if I want to say that. It's breaking away from a traditional argument of 4 walls and a roof. Although it's still 4 walls and a roof, might be four and a half walls and a roof. But the idea is not to actually look at it as a room with 4 walls and a roof. It will be to look at an education space with brilliant minds, and through that we will evolve flooring, ceiling, walls, detailing, furniture detailing. So now we're actually talking about dimensions. We're talking about almost like a virtual world in a space. So doing that, we had to relook at what we see as a traditional higher education environment. And we went and studied a couple of in South Africa. We took the leadership of STADIO to a couple. We went on a road trip, and everyone said, but yeah, it works. And we said yes, but there it doesn't work, and there it doesn't work. And the biggest question was, but where's the user's experience, the student? What's his experience? All these things have been designed according to academic requirements, business requirements, curriculum requirements. But what's the experience the user have, which is actually the hero of the space?
Yes, and they occupy it the most.
Yeah, the hero sitting in that space. The student sitting in that space. He's the hero. And how do we design for that person?
Yeah.
And based on the STADIO model of attending and going home, or going to, let's say, another place, we challenged that the status quo and said, but what if the student wants to stay at a campus? What will make him stay there? Because if you go to another campus, students stay at the campus because the dormitories are closed, or the residents are closed. They've got a lesser online course with STADIO as a distant learning environment.
Yes.
And with Centurion, it's basically the first formal contact learning center. We looked at challenges they had there, and we then applied the solutions at Durbanville, so that we've got a contact campus, and where there's a user experience, but not only from the student, but to the lecturer, to the business and the visitor. So suddenly we had to take 4 different avenues and bring them together and to a circle where they can feel, but we're part of a bigger campus, and not just because of a room with 4 walls and a roof.
4 walls and a roof. I love that. So what do you think students, lecturers, what do you think people can expect in terms of user experience that other campuses won't offer at the Durbanville campus?
The user, I think, will create his own experience. For us to go and create a pink wall in a space and I hope that the person will become flabbergasted through that color, it's more of a shocking effect. I think if we create a space or the environment where a person can say, but if I want to go and paint the wall pink,
then they're able to.
Then they'll be able to. So it's more about how the user utilizes space, so that it's adaptable to the user, and not so that we define and dictate
what the experience should be.
Because otherwise then I start thinking for a person that's now 18, 19, with my age gap between them, or for the adult learner is doing his PhD, or the kid that's the 10 that wants to go study there in 8 years' time. So it's difficult to say, but today we're going to paint the wall pink or any other color, and say that will be the color, or that will be the influence that will be liked by the kid that's today 10, or the kid that's 11, or the one that's a student at 20, or the lecturer at 40, 50. So our spatial design was crucial that we have a functional space that can be adapted to the user, and that adaptability is actually available. So we looked at textures, material that we can actually touch. If you go to a shop, I believe when you go into a shop, you will touch the clothing.
Yes.
Most people do that. I've noticed that. And so we played with the sensory. So your visual connections, your hearing, the sound that you get in the building. One of the things we try to do is to say that you have different leveling of sound. So if you're walking here, you have a backdrop sound that comes from the third or second floor. You have a lower sound coming down from the cafeteria, or you have a silent sound that comes through the corridor. It's part of a sensory, almost a wayfinding methodology. We played with texture. When you touch walls, that you know that this wall's got a smooth finish, that one's got a texture finish, this one's got a color finish, it's got slatted finishes. So we played with material textures. We played with colors on the floors. We're still introducing colors to some elements in the design. It's still work in progress.
So sustainability has become a key factor in modern architecture, right? So how does the Durbanville campus incorporate sustainability and eco-friendly features?
It's quite a broad subject. There's almost like a pivot of the extreme sustainability and then the almost none sustainability. So it's to find a medium that can be afforded within the design.
Yes.
We all would like to be the extreme sustainable design, get the 5-star grading rating from the Green Building Council, and have that almost that status on it. But it comes at a cost and at a process which we did not have the time for. So we had to apply almost core principles as part of our of our training. So every architect must design a building as sustainable as possible within a reasonable framework that's given to him. So I would say one of the foremost stuff that you do is to actually look at orientation. It's very impossible to orientate a building of education, every room to the north side. But then again, you don't want every room north. Some of the rooms you would like to have east or west, or no, not so much west, because west is quite harsh sun in the Cape, but south. And then how you deal with that light factor, the temperature changes, how the brickwork is selected to actually almost deal with the temperature change between the inside and the outside. Also, our material that we selected is to see how much we can get from local supplies. Our sand, our stone, our materials come from locally. We even use local contractors.
Love that.
So we don't use people that we import from the north. But that's the simple stuff. That's the easy stuff. We looked at one of the things we looked at is how transport works. How will students come to the campus?
To the campus, yes.
Do they have to? There's no train there. There are no buses there. It's still a very underdeveloped area within a development framework. So it's going to be quite a while before there's actually bus routes going through. And most students might have cars, but not everyone has cars. So we looked at the national public transport system, which is taxis. So we designed a taxi rank, of a taxi parking drop-off area.
Oh, lovely.
A bus drop-off area, even a visitor's drop-off area, so that it's not a holding space. So it's not where the public transport can be statutory and wait. It's drop off and go. But that's off the campus. So suddenly the campus is secured, if I put that way, and students can move through the gates. Our stormwater is managed on site, so it's not just water that when it rains gets dumped. It actually gets naturally recycled on the site through a swale system, so that it gets spread over the plants. Our glazing is energy efficient. We looked at our electricity usage, that we put the building at an efficient energy level. The group is investing solar on the campus as a resource for electricity. We also look at earth warming, thing that people overlook a lot, but the earth that we walk on gets hot. It almost transit heat upwards, so that automatically you feel the heat. So what we looked at is actually using flooring or external brickwork that we actually reduce it as far as possible. We look at natural vegetation, grass, flower beds or shrub beds. How the building creates shadows, natural shadows in the afternoon, that you've got shade, that we don't have to go and build afdakkies. We took in consideration that type of stuff. But sustainability goes far more than that. It is about the type of how transport works, how your energy management works, how your transport system integrates with your buildings, your resource management and that. And we're not there yet. We're working towards some parts of that. But I think the campus will be to a large sustainable conscious and also considered in the process.
So how do you see the new campus influencing or contributing to the surrounding Durbanville community? Since we've spoken about, you're using local resources and, you're basically creating jobs within the community. So how do you think the campus will then contribute further towards the community?
I think there's a big hype about it. Just standing weekends at sport fields, because I stay in Durbanville, standing at sport fields, even kids from Paul comes to that area and they talk about this.
Yes.
So there's a hype about it, and the excitement you can. It's almost like it's electric. You can feel it sometimes.
Yes.
So the community as a whole starts seeing this as a university coming to town. I know it's not as formal as that, and I know it's not at that scale.
Yes.
But there's this excitement about it. The fact that we do have a tertiary education of that scale coming to Durbanville, and putting its roots, not its founding roots, but almost like these deep roots in Durbanville. The area that they selected is also a new suburban area, suburban area coming out, part of the urban development of Durbanville. There's a lot of these shopping centres coming up, there's housing coming up. A couple of years ago, the Kiro High School was built there. The STADIO is opposite each other, so there's a symbiosis between the two campuses.
Yes.
I don't think it was initially deliberately designed that way, but we were opportunists. We took it and we did it. And these two groups are basically neighbours. So the community sees now that we've got a high school here of, and I would say it, I think it's world-class standards.
Yes.
And then you've got a university on this side that has world-class standards. And these two form almost a precinct of education. I mean, I think it's something new for South Africa that we've got a high school and a tertiary education facility as one. Although there's a road between, there's a linkage between the two. In terms of a community, I think it will broaden the community's offering and the larger. Durbanville's got renowned for its wine farms and they call it peri-urban living style.
Yes.
It's slightly moving away, but also I think it's got a value to the community, a sense of human community, human contribution to the environment, and not the landscape environment, but the human environment where people get together, and it becomes almost an anchor in that space. There's a lot happening in that side of the world. A lot of opportunity coming up.
Yes.
So I believe that the campus is at the right time, right place.
I love that. Right time, right place. Beautiful. Okay, and then what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced while designing the Durbanville campus?
Timing.
That's a real answer though.
Look, it was a long process. The first time I heard about it was when Doc Chris actually had this vision of doing a tertiary education centre in facility in Durbanville, and that was almost 6 years ago, if I recall correctly. Then there was this hype of we're going to start with it. Then we hit COVID. We weren't the first architects on the project. There were other architects initially involved. Eventually led that we became the architects, and I believe it was because of our hunger to learn how to do education. What we've done with the Durbanville High School, there are theories that we apply. So timing was a challenge. And eventually, when we got to the point that we know, okay, now we're going for it, there was almost, but we need to look at the budget. You need to be conscious, and I think there's also a sense of responsibility that you have to have towards budget. We all moan about budget, but then we all complain about it. But the reality is that we need to be conscious towards budget, because there's a direct effect on our consumerism and how it affects what prices goes out. And the reality of that is that we can do things good as long as we are conscious to what we're doing. To have the right partners in it was also a process. We had to select the right consultants that understands the process, that buys into the idea of a design, develop program. We had to seek a good contractor. We had to go and find a contractor, and there was a couple on the table, but it was the right one that came to the table and partnered with STADIO. We had to optimize design. So we designed, let's say, for X, and then they said, but we want more. So we had to do more with less. and I think that led to other challenges in the sense of how do you define a cafeteria. And we broke away from a principle of a cafeteria. We went to say, but this must be a coffee lounge. And we went and studied McDonald's and KFC and Mug and Bean and Seattle and airport lounges, because that is what lounges look like.
Yes.
And where people sit and actually have conversations. And the business partnered with a franchise group, and they actually brought them in, and suddenly the whole idea came to light, and the lounge became reality. Now we don't have a cafeteria with Tan Sunny with a white cap with 2 spoons. We actually have a franchise offering coffee. And through other challenges, we start looking at how education is offered in the rooms and spaces. So every aspect became almost like mini challenges, and we had built on that, created new foundation blocks, build on that, break it down, rebuild, and eventually got to ideas that works for the business, but is also something for tomorrow. I don't say it's future-proof, because we do change. But I think itself is an opportunity that it can evolve with it for the future.
So for young people listening to the podcast who dream of becoming architects or engineers, what advice would you give them based on your own experience?
I think we're all optimists, but also pessimists. So the pessimist we will say don't.
Don't do it. Run for your life.
But then that will be a 1 second lie. It's not easy, and it's not as gloomy and Hollywood orientated as it looks like sometimes. But that you create yourself. Where in my life would I thought 29 years ago I would sit in a podcast and speaking to you about architecture?
Right.
And this is your glamour. You can create it. You can write. You can create your own glamour by doing things differently. So for young children, I mean, I take my 2 children, which is in grade 8 and 10 now. I don't influence them what to go and study. I just give them opportunity to understand what I'm doing. And my youngest, when he was challenged the other day with a question, what do he want to become? He says, I want to become an engineer because I love maths, but if I see it, how my dad loves buildings, I would like to become an architect. My daughter, which is in grade 10, if you ask her, she says she likes about the creativeness, but also the conformity of architecture, which it's not so much true, but it's something that she can associate with.
Yes.
So I think there are a lot of parents will ask, but what future is there for my kid in architecture? What future in terms of income will they have? What life they will have? That you can't determine. It's all about what you're going to do with it. You need to have grit. It's very important. You need to understand that you're going to be rejected. People are going to tell you they don't like your design. Some people will be polite. They will tell you I don't like it, or they will use nicer, softer, more responsible words, and then he will get the ones that will just be bluntly honest and say, throw it away, break the model, put it in a dustbin. That's how you stand up from that, and there's a process involved with that, and that happens even today. And at where I'm sitting is that where I get clients that say, but we don't really like it, or it doesn't work for us. So you have to develop a grit how to deal with that. The great part about it is you see things being created. Most of the stuff that we create stands for 20 to 50 years. We're sometimes fortunate that of the ugly stuff they break down. But most of the stuff that we see now stands for 50 to 100 years. I mean, we've got buildings standing for 300-400 years in South Africa already. In Europe, we see 1,000 years. It's very much about knowing what you're in for, and then don't get stuck about the glamour of the industry, but know the bad side of it. But you have to drive yourself, definitely. Be informed, read about it, talk to people, seek information from people that does architecture or engineering. Go to open days. All the university has open days. So I think there's a lot of avenues and tools and channels that
People just need to go and research.
it's not going to happen by itself.
Yeah. How do you balance your demanding career as an architect with your personal life?
Sanity. Yesterday we had a leadership workshop in the space we're sitting now. So just to give you the idea of this space got 4 purposes.
Okay.
You just added another one to it, so we got 5 purposes.
Oh yes, love that.
And I said to them, who I am at work, I'm at home.
Okay.
I can't be 2 people, because then I'm not true. You can't stand in front at people and be someone different, and at home you're the
Total opposite.
opposite. So I think my saving is that what I say at work, I can say it at home, and what I do at home, I can do at work. I'm talking within the public environment. You need to find a balance. It's the culture says that we have to work for free. The culture tells us that we have to work long hours, and it does happen. But it's not an everyday thing. Everyone works late sometimes. You start with not a great pay, but you evolve into a better salary with experience. I think the expectation these days is that everyone wants to be earning too much too quick for too little experience or input. But my own personal life is I've founded activities. I spend time with my kids. I attend day sport a lot. Build Lego. You will see it a bit later in my office and the greater office. I do off-road riding with a motorbike. I do camping with my Defender. Yeah, there are guys still driving Land Rovers in South Africa. Spend time with my wife. It's important. It's one of my pillars in my life. Make time with my wife. Make time with my kids. Make time with my staff. Invest into my staff. So the balance comes in that I have to balance my relationships with everything around me. It's not everything that must balance it with me. So I don't believe in a life balance orientation. I believe that you need to balance your life as a whole. And that way all the other things there's almost like an orchestra coming together, and you're the conductor of that time. That's basically how I balance it.
Lovely. And what's your trick to balancing life?
I'm learning patience, but I don't have it yet.
Everyday process?
I think it's laugh at yourself. I do have that fortunate personality that I speak to myself and actually laugh at myself with the stupid stuff I do. I'm also hard on myself, which is the opposite of laughing at yourself. And I think through that I'm learning as time goes by is not to be that hard on myself. And that's one of the earlier questions you asked in terms of what is the challenge or blockage, and which is one is that you're hard on yourself.
Yes.
I also believe in myself. You have to develop a personality where you believe that what you are doing is right, without being arrogant. So my balance comes basically through my association with people.
And then maybe tell us, who are you outside of work and family? Because I think you spoke about the balance of your work and your family, and you are the same person, but like outside of that, who are you?
I like silence.
Really?
I like quietness.
Okay. Is that your time to like be by yourself and like meditate or like process your thoughts?
Oh no, I can sit in the car and drive without music.
Oh really? So you generally just like silence?
Yeah. Then
Crazy, I could never do that.
so yeah, I think you need sometimes to break away. So I enjoy hunting, but I think it's more about being in the veld. I do it with my son. He started with me when he was 7, but I got coached or taught by my granddad how to read the field, how to be part of the field. So I'm teaching that to my son. My daughter joined me this year, so I'm teaching some of that to her, but she's not into that so much. It's more about the experience of being there. But I think nature is a big part of our life. My experience is through hunting and enjoying the field. My motorbike is a quiet time. My wife goes with me, but I put off the microphone because we don't have to talk to each other. We can talk when we get there.
When we get there, enjoy the breeze.
And then I think that gives you also opportunity to be focused, but also observant, because you can see what's happening around you. Reading, basically more education. But I basically all these things come down to a bit of more individual time, but more the quiet time. I changed my jeans or my chinos to my baggy pants and my pockets in it, and my booties, and a bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
But I'm very much similar. I still will bring in my funny socks, and I will still have my peak on, or just a different type of cap. And there will be somewhere yellow in my attire.
Is that your favorite color?
Not actually. I just decided I will choose a color that I don't like, and actually see how I can afford it into my life.
That's interesting. How did you come up with that concept?
It's purely just being different. It's just something I tried, and I noticed that
there's room for it.
Yeah, and people are attracted to yellow in the sense of, if you look at brands, how people see yellow as a trustworthy brand, a happy brand. And then we start doing it in our buildings, see how people react to the colors. And then I said, okay, well, let's try it in practice. And then I said, well, if I have to try it in practice, let me try it on myself. So that's where yellow started.
Do you have any routines or hobbies that help you stay grounded and creative?
Definitely. I say when we introduced, in the beginning you asked me
Yes.
a similar type of question. I only recently learned that it's called the 5 a.m. club, but I started about 6 months ago with a morning routine that I'm rigidly following every morning, 6 days of the 7 days a week. That brings balance on myself. It's a 2 to 3 hours that I spend on myself. Because the rest of the day you are between people, with people, among people, and then the other time you're sleeping. And so instead of actually having 8 hours to sleep, 8 hours to work, and 8 hours to do stuff, I've actually just broken it down to 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. So instead of actually having 3 cycles, I now have effectively 6 cycles, and 4 of that is spent on myself, 4 is spent with my family, 8 is spent with my working environment, and 8 is spent on sleeping.
As you look to the future, what do you hope to leave as your legacy in architecture? And are there any particular projects or goals that you still want to achieve?
Okay, that's almost like 2 questions, but
Okay, let's break it down to
but
the first
I can
one.
actually answer it. It's, I think every architect, I think, has got this dream that they want to do this legacy building and leave it behind, and everyone must remember it.
Yeah.
I think as time has evolved in society, the architects of 100 years ago that we are today seeing as our theory mentors, our references, we are moving in a different area where the star architect came into society, where they done these modern buildings, but it's not conformed to any traditional thinking, and it brings a new challenge into our life. And I think every architect would like to someday do a building that everyone's going to talk about for generations. But I think if that is your drive, then good luck with that. It's difficult to find a client like that in where we are. For me, I just would like to be involved with projects where we contribute to society. Hopefully every building we do has got a meaning into society. So I don't want to do a building that I know it's contributed to the downfall of society. But then looking through that, this is achievement doing this building we're doing for STADIO, the campus we're doing for them. I see that as an achievement. The year or two from now, we probably will do another building for another client, which I will see as an achievement. But I think these forms part of, I've got this saying that I'd rather be consistent in the top 10 than once in my life be number one. Rather have a consistency of being recognized as an architect that contributes than being recognized as an architect that won a competition. So for me, consistency is very important. And so my dream on that is that we remain consistent and that we improve, as I said earlier, improve from good to better to great. That we actually use that as our stepping block for the future. I've got the answering is the first part of your question as the second answer.
Okay.
Swapping around.
No problem.
Is to I've got the principle that I have to plant a seed so the tree can grow. And there's a saying, some Chinese or Japanese saying that you will plant a seed so that you can sit under the shade. Very much what I do in my practice. I create opportunities for the younger employees coming through the ranks, building for them businesses in the business, creating opportunity for them to become part of leadership, leaving for them room to evolve and develop. And as we progress and evolve forward, they can actually take over. So it's just not a building for myself, it's actually building for the business, for the employee community that we've got.
Lovely. Okay, cool. I think that is a great way to end off our formal side of the podcast. Now we're going to get into the fun side, which is the this and that segment. So I'm generally going to ask you like quick questions, and you generally need to pick between answer A and B, but you don't have time to think about it.
Okay.
Okay, so let's dive into that. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So do you prefer modern architecture or classic architecture?
Modern.
Sustainability or aesthetics?
That's a difficult one, but more sustainability, but aesthetics is important.
Yes. Urban design or nature-inspired design?
Urban design.
Creative freedom or strict project brief?
Creative freedom.
High-tech, smart buildings or eco-friendly, low-key structure?
Smart buildings.
Okay. 3D models or hand-down sketches?
By far handout.
Renovating old buildings or starting from scratch?
It's currently, I would say, renovating.
Okay. Architecture or engineering?
Definitely architecture.
Open collaborative spaces or private focus work areas?
Collaborative.
Okay. Last one. Late night design sessions or early morning site visits?
Early morning.
Really? Lovely. Okay, cool. So that brings us to the end of our this or that. Thank you so much for your time and your insights in architecture and your journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of STADIO Speaks. A big thank you to our guest for joining us and sharing his incredible insights on the new STADIO Durbanville Campus and his inspiring career in architecture. If you're a prospective student or someone with a passion for architecture and engineering, we hope this episode gave you a glimpse of what's possible and how STADIO is shaping the future of education. So, as always, don't forget to subscribe to STADIO Speaks for more exciting conversations and follow us on social media to stay updated on all things STADIO. Until next time, I'm Kanyisa, and remember, the future is what you build.